When you see something for the very first time, you use your memories and past experience to try and determine what it is that you're really looking at. When I first saw the cover art for Fallen Legon Revenants, I thought to myself, oh, is that a new Castlevania game? Then I watched the trailer and I thought to myself, oh, the art style kind of looks like those Vanillaware games. And when I first saw the combat system, I was like, hey, this kind of reminds me of Valkyrie Profile. But the truth is, it's none of these games.
I am having the worst migraine of my life!
Fallen Legon Revenants is its own thing, but the question remains, is this a game worth playing? Join me and let's find out. Published by Nippon Ichi Software America and developed by YummyYummyTummy, best name ever. This is actually the 4th Fallen Legion game that has been released. The first 3 games all focus around the same story, but from different perspectives each time. This game, however, is not a direct sequel to that, and with a few Easter eggs aside, it has no ties to those earlier games. Playing through the story took me about 20 hours, but there is a lot more to do because the story can branch depending on the choices that you make. I will explain more about this later in the video. If you end up finding this review helpful, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as there is a lot more to come in the future. Now without further ado, let's start with the setting and the characters. So you start off in a pretty dark reality. The world is covered in miasma and everyone is either dead, sick or has mutated into a monster. One place is still safe, however, which is the floating castle of Welkin, but even that is under control by an evil tyrant named Ivor. In order to dethrone him, 2 very distinct individuals join forces, and these are your playable characters. Lucian is a cunning and witty man that takes great pride in his manipulative skills, and Rowena is a ghost that will not rest until she takes revenge on Ivor and frees her son from prison. Ivor is a seemingly untouchable man, so in order to overthrow him, he first needs to be weakened both from the outside world and from within the castle. And this is exactly where the interesting gameplay comes in. You see, you alternate between Lucian and Rowena, but their playstyles are very different. When playing as Rowena, you do the fighting, and when playing as Lucian, you do the talking. Now, Rowena controls weapons that have been brought to life with magic called exemplars. Seeing as both Rowena and the exemplars aren't human beings, they can travel the world without being affected by the ongoing plague. You start off with just a few of these fighters, and as you progress through the story, you can unlock up to 12 of them. Each of the fighters have their own style and element, and it's your job to experiment and find many of the cool synergies the parties can have. Lucian's playstyle, however, is purely focused around the political and social aspect of the story. He talks to other residents of the castle and cunningly manipulates them to either join his side or at least align with his goals. So how do these playstyles really mix? Well, story-wise, both Lucian and Rowena work towards the same goals throughout the different missions. So one of the many possible examples is that Lucian has to plant evidence to frame someone for a crime that he didn't commit. Rowena then heads out into the world to gather the specific evidence, and once she has retrieved it, Lucian goes through a stealth section to plant the evidence. Action-wise, the playstyles blend well together too. Rowena's combat parts are fast-paced with a lot going on during battles, and almost all of Lucian's parts are met with very strict deadlines. So both playstyles require you to be quick on your feet and make the right decisions. If you don't make the right decision, however, it can have some major consequences. So how major are the consequences that I was talking about? Well, let's just say that they can be so impactful that they result in the death of certain characters or even prematurely end the game and have the credits roll. Actions have consequences. The dark setting of this game is not to be taken lightly, and the choices you have to make can leave you with a sense of guilt, and sometimes even helplessness. I don't want to spoil the specifics, but if you set out to do an action as a Lucian and fail this because of the time limit, you will get the exact opposite consequence of what you were going for. I love that this game can make me feel uncomfortable, stressed and relieved through the choices alone, but there is one crucial part missing in the storytelling, which is context. You see, in the first few minutes you learn that Rowena is dead and wants to save a child, and that Lucian works together with her. Together they will overthrow Ivor. But that's where the making a lot of sense quickly stops. There are a lot of named characters in the castle that each play their roles, but you barely get an introduction from any of them. Soon later you will need to start making important choices, but these are very confusing as you do not even recognize the names of everyone involved. So you don't really know what is important or what is not important. It's not until a good 4 to 5 hours into the game where things start to make sense again, but you are already suffering the consequences from your earlier choices at this point. This almost made me want to quit the game early on, but thankfully the great combat system pulled me through this barrier. So what makes this combat great? Well, simply put, there's just a lot going on and you are greatly rewarded for timing things right. You control Rowena and up to 3 different fighters at the same time. Each of the fighters has a designated button with which they will attack. Regular attacks will charge your mana gauge, and once this is full you can use special skills. These special skills are bound to the equipment of the fighters, and as you progress through the story you can find more and more weapons. These will unlock new attacks that can completely change the playstyle from the different fighters. In addition to this, you can also block enemy attacks, and this is where it gets really interesting. Simply blocking an attack will reduce the damage you take, but if you time it really well, you will take no damage and shoot the projectiles back at the enemies. Now these are the basics of the combat, but as you clear story chapters you will unlock more and more features that will make the combat even better. Such as being able to equip a second spell for each fighter, use more spells more frequently, and equip special effects that can trigger during battle. So where battles are pretty straightforward, bosses can be the complete opposite. Some early bosses are like elite versions of the regular enemies and they're annoying at best, but the major boss battles are a whole different story. These all have special tricks to them that makes them challenging in their own way. Some of them have a lot of additional enemies you need to deal with, some need to be pushed or pulled from different spots, and some of my favorite bosses require you to master the art of timing your blocks. Beating a boss feels good in this game. It gave me a sense of accomplishment which not a lot of other games manage to do these days. All in all, the combat is addicting and remains fresh for a long time because you can always change your playstyle through the different fighters and weapons. So we've reached my final thoughts. YummyYummyTummy has created something unique with Fallen Legon Revenants, but due to a lack of story context it's hard to get into at the start. Once you're past this, however, the story becomes engaging and the choices you make will leave you with a feeling ranging from happiness to grief and everything in between. Both the writing of the character dialogue and the voice acting is great. Everything the characters say and do matches their personality, especially when interacting with you or the other characters. The story branching goes deep, it has a high replayability value, and you can see that the actions really have consequences. The combat is simple at its core, but with a skill-based countering system and versatile selection of fighters and weapons, you can make it as complex as you want. Even on my second playthrough, the combat doesn't feel boring to me at all. Both these gameplay elements mix well together, and by alternating between them all the time, none of them really overtake the whole experience. But that's just the thing though. Because of these two elements being so intertwined, you need to be interested in both of them to make it an enjoyable experience. If you don't like a story in a dark setting revolving around politics and influence, this game is not for you. If you don't like a combat system that sometimes demands you to be skilled by getting timings right, this game is not for you. But if you are even mildly interested in both these aspects, I definitely think this game is worth picking up. So what do you think after hearing all this? Does this look like something you would enjoy or something you would skip? Also, if you have any additional questions about the game, do not hesitate to ask and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And on that note, I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time.